Fists together, I am somebody. I may be poor, but I am somebody.
Red and yellow, brown, black, and white. We're all precious in God's sight. Everybody is somebody. Stop the violence. Save the children. Stop bullying. Save the children.
Hold your head high. Stick your chest out. You can make it. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive.
Hi, I'm Dr. Sonia Whitaker, and thank you so much for joining us for the Saturday Morning Forum. We want to dedicate this broadcast to Moselle Barnes. Mr. Barnes is a Chicago area businessman who has dedicated his entire life to advocating for social justice related issues. We want to also dedicate this broadcast to Bob Lanier, NBA legend. Welcome to everyone who is joining us on Impact Network. We want to also thank Impact Network for bringing you directly to us. And yet we also recognize that many of you are watching us on YouTube. Please do subscribe to our YouTube channel and please share it with everyone you know. And like our Facebook page. We absolutely cannot do this without you. We need your financial support, and we make it easy for you to give. Simply pick up your cell phone right now and use the QR code right in front of your screen. Take a picture of that, and you can give right on the spot. If you prefer, you can also simply text the word PUSH to 41444. Text PUSH to 41444. And if you prefer, you can go to our webpage. And on our webpage, all you have to do is to go to rainbowpush.org and push the word donate, and you can donate right on the spot. Thank you for each of you who had an opportunity to participate in Push Excel's critical thinking event focused on 68 years after Brown versus Board of Education. We'd also like to extend a warm thank you for those of you who had an opportunity to participate in our Push Tech Summit. That's the reason why we want you to subscribe to our YouTube page so that you can gain immediate access to our content right as it's released. Coming up in the show, we're going to bring to you Reverend Dr. Todd Yeary with Due Process. And coming up in the show, we're going to bring to you Reverend Jeanette Wilson with a spotlight on education. And then I'll be back with Dr. Kevin Anthony Ford, and he and I will engage in spirited conversations about the need to educate students for success, not only in school, but for success in life with a focus on career education. Don't touch that dial. Stay tuned. The push is on, and we'll be right back.
Well, this is Bishop Tavis Grant, the National Field Director for the Rainbow Push Coalition. I want to thank you for once again joining our International Saturday Morning Forum. You know, the work of Reverend Jesse Jackson spans this globe, and as we approach our international convention, I want you to be our personal guest June 18th through the 22nd at the South Shore Country Club here in the city of Chicago. And of course, you can go to rainbowpush.org and get more information, or follow us on any of our social media platforms. As we are approaching some of the greatest challenges of this era, one of them is the eradication of violence and bringing about a sense of peace and responsibility in the communities that we serve. Reverend Jackson has met with leaders across the country as we're planning a faith-based crime summit to really look at some comprehensive and constructive ways of collaborating with stakeholders because the reality of the matter is we cannot arrest our way out of this. There is no way we're going to participate in furthering the pipeline to prison process, and nor are we going to feed the profiteering of the prison industrial complex. And so we do know that at the heart of our communities are quality of life institutions called churches. And one of those churches is located in Maywood, Illinois, just west of Chicago, the historic Second Baptist Church. And we have its new pastor, Pastor Chauncey Brown, with us on the day. And he has such a wide and expanding scope on ministry and church, as he is taking on the challenge of being a part of the Renaissance in the city of Maywood. And many of us, Pastor Brown, being a West Sider myself, we really consider Maywood as part of Chicago, but it is its own entity. Talk to us about some of the challenges that you're facing now at the helm of this historic church.
First, I want to say thank you, Bishop Grant, for the opportunity to share with you. It is one of your sayings that tough times don't last, tough people do. And one thing I realize is that Maywood has such a great fabric in the society, specifically the Second Baptist Church. One thing we see in our little neighborhood is that violence has risen, and it's with our teenagers. I believe that what God sent me from Indianapolis to Maywood to do was to come outside of the church office and reach our generation, provide avenues. If we're going to change the trajectory of our future, then it's my belief that we have to reach families holistically. I also have background as a teacher. I was a teacher in the Indianapolis public school system. And one thing I realized was that my 6 hours a day with the students was nothing compared to the 18 hours they had at home. And until we deal with the root of what's going on at home, I believe we'll still face some of the same difficulty in our society. And it will only get worse if we don't come outside of our church offices, if we don't come out of Sunday service, come out of just Wednesday Bible study, and actually care about people holistically.
Well, we've been talking about the proliferation of investing in historically Black colleges.
Yes.
We now are segueing, realizing that wealth building and wealth creation and wealth innovation is a necessity for the sustainability of our communities. And we're talking about investing in historically Black communities like we invest in historically Black colleges. Talk about now the challenges through the pandemic of a church maintaining stability, but also providing resources. I know that Second Baptist is planning a job fair and several other things.
One of the unique opportunities that we have at Second Baptist and all of Maywood is to rekindle that which God had once done. But how do we change the trajectory of our neighborhood? One thing that I know that we're planning to do coming out of a pandemic, we realize we have two churches now. We have the in-person church, and they're going to come every week, and they're going to be there no matter what. But now we have the virtual church, which is where our young people seem to thrive and they seem to grow. Our social media presence has had to increase, and we have to learn to do things that we've never done. Dr. Ken Sullivan in Indianapolis says it this way, that if you're going to represent Christ, you have to learn how to represent him. Mm-hmm. Changing the method, not the message. Mm-hmm. And even when it comes to our economic development and developing of people in Maywood, some of the things that our church is working on now currently, we have a community center that we have plans for, that now we're looking for grants and we're looking for funding, and we're looking on ways that we can raise funds to reach this community. How do we reach them holistically? I don't believe it's Sunday morning. I love Sunday morning. Trust me, I'm a preacher. I love to be at church. But I will take from Pastor Michael Drain, who says it this way, that either you can do church work or you can do the work of the church. Yeah. What does the work of the church look like? This is where, for our church, what it looks like is we're impacting our community with food pantries. But not only food pantries, but at the food pantry, we have Oak Street Health. that comes and provides health care. We have jobs every single week that will, if we have one or two that will come out and are ready to hire on the spot. Because I don't want you to have to come to the food pantry every week. I want you to be able to say, hey, I want to give to the food pantry because you blessed me here with a position.
I think it's important, those of you who are watching, and this is a phenomenal leader leading a historic congregation. And there's so many of you pastors who watch us and your members watch us. I want you to get engaged, get involved, and get connected to the fastest growing social justice movement. That's the Rainbow Push Coalition. You can become a member today by hitting that tab at rainbowpush.org. And so I want to invite you to join Pastor Brown and myself June 18th through the 22nd. 1,000 churches connected. We are going to make an impact on our communities that cannot be erased. And don't ever forget, it is our quest at our best to keep hope alive.
Welcome back, and I'm excited about the fact that we have Reverend Kevin Anthony Ford spending time with us today. As you're aware, across our nation, there is a great deal of dialogue about how important it is to ensure that our students are successful in school, but ultimately successful in life. And a part of the work that has to go behind ensuring that students are successful in life is making sure that they have the skills needed to be successful in their career of choice. And so we could think of no better guest to have with us today than you to talk with us about the programming option that you are making available in your collaboration with Rainbow Push relevant to this topic at hand.
God bless you. Thank you for having me, Dr. Whitaker. I'd like to give honor to Reverend Jackson and his fine staff for having us here today. We're excited about this new opportunity to allow young black men and women an opportunity to find a career in the construction industry. We offer a 12-week program that has been proven time after time to complete the mission of placement of bringing young black men and women into the skilled crafts. Electricians, plumbers, pipe fitters, riggers, name it, we're there. And so we are, again, excited about being here and presenting to the community, to our young brothers and sisters, this wonderful career opportunity in the construction arena.
How important do you think it is that young adults have this level of experience and exposure?
I think it's critical. Our educational system heretofore has only allowed the information to go out for 4-year collegiate degrees, 2 years, but we have not looked and explored the career opportunity in this trillion-dollar industry where young men and women can find meaningful careers, pension, benefits that will carry them a lifetime. And so we're excited about this.
You know, I've shared with you earlier that I work in a school district. I'm a school district official, and there's so much pressure on teachers to produce results as it relates to students' performance on standardized tests. Again, subliminal message being sent that preparing students for careers is not as important. With that being said, I want to ask you, what do you see the school's role in helping to provide students with the skills that they need? Because I see what you're doing, enhancing what students bring to the table and then helping them use those skills at the next level. But at the bottom level, what is your interpretation of the school's role in this process?
It's imperative that educators come from out of the silo and explore the opportunities that exist in technical aspects. Fermi Lab needs technicians, and this is a nuclear collider. We need young men and women who can matriculate into the construction industry, who can read the blueprints, who can help with the design parameters, who can go through the apprenticeship and subsequently come out to becoming business owners with the right acumen, with the right supports coming from our public school systems. Young men and women can explore the plethora of opportunities that will bring them into an upper middle class life, where they can sustain not only themselves, but families and build communities. Wow. This is not a misnomer It's real, and we need our educators to catch the vision. I just spoke before several thousand electricians the other day. They're waiting on us. I've spoken to the heat frost insulators, plumbers, pipe fitters, name it. This is an excellent opportunity as the population of construction workers are aging out. Now is the time. And so now we offer this program to our brothers and sisters.
Wow, I gotta be authentic and admit, I'm growing a lot as a result of the conversation that we're having right now. So I really do mean that, and I'm sincere when I say that. When you were talking, I couldn't help but to think about, and not to get too political here, but the reality is that the work that needs to be done, for example, in the city of Chicago, relevant to construction contracts that need to be had. Don't you think that if we could graduate more students with those skills, that we would have more people in line, more young adults or adults of color, African Americans, black, let me just say it, black folks in line to be considered for those jobs to help rebuild the infrastructure of one of the nation's most prestigious cities? Would you have a take?
It's imperative that young people understand the courses that you take in college, high school, in grammar school it's important that you understand that you will need great math skills to enter the construction industry. You will need to distinguish yourself in your language arts classes. These items are critical for your ascension into the construction arena. So I implore all of you who are under the sound of my voice, let's encourage education, but let's make sure that brothers and sisters are able to find meaningful careers with the education that's been afforded in our grammar schools and high schools.
Now I'm gonna make, in closing, a bit of a twist, but I think this is a powerful exchange we're having. A lot of times when I would drive through the communities that I've served, and this is real talk, far too often I run into abandoned buildings. And there may be homes where there's 5 homes in a row where people are actually living, and then 15 homes after that where nobody is living. And I can't help but to think about, you think you know where I'm going with this, if we can teach our children to rebuild those homes, if we can give our students the skills that they need to actually rebuild their own community, I can't help but to think that we would be a lot better off.
St. Paul Community Development Ministries is offering this program so that young men and women can enter apprenticeship and be assigned to work on skyscrapers, be assigned to work in communities. They can work with companies and work wherever they desire to work throughout the continental United States of America. So we can rebuild the city of Chicago, but let's give our children an opportunity to find this meaningful place in time in a career in the construction industry.
Well, there you have it. Would you tell them what's happening at Rainbow Push on Saturdays? And
for the next 5 Saturdays, we will be meeting here at Rainbow Push from 9 to 11 under the careful eye and watch of Reverend Jeanette Wilson. We are waiting for you to come and meet us at 9 a.m. sharp. Be on time. You will change your life. What an opportunity God has given. So please meet us here at 9 a.m. to 11 every Saturday up until June the 11th. It is imperative that you come out. Classes will begin June 27th without challenge. God bless you.
thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us for this week's Saturday Morning Forum. After an exhausting week of tragic news, economic pressure, inflation realities, and ongoing social strife, we are reminded that the progress of America is rooted in the generational will to fight for that which is just and true. This week marks 68 years since the landmark ruling for racial justice was handed down in Brown versus Board of Education. 68 years later, we still have much work to do, and we must do it together. That's why you should meet us here in Chicago, June 18th through 22nd for the Rainbow Push Coalition International Convention at the South Shore Cultural Center, as we push the envelope in developing and demanding greater opportunity in the marketplace of ideas and dreams, of education and service, of business and entrepreneurship. Go to rainbowpush.org to register. It is free. And plan to take your seat at the movement table as a partner in creating new markets and keeping hope alive. In a few minutes, I will be back with this week's Due Process. I will talk about how families are facing new difficulties in making ends meet, diversity challenges in public health and in government, and about our response to the horror of what happened in Buffalo last weekend. Stay tuned for Due Process, and thank you for joining today's Saturday Morning Forum.
Hi, I'm Tim Lee. Push Excel is committed to celebrating African American history 365 days of the year. And as this week comes to a close, we want to highlight some of the moments that happened this week in history, moments we think youth ought to know. On May 17, 1954, the Supreme Court handed down its decision in Brown versus Board of Education, ruling that separate educational facilities are inherently unequal. This landmark decision reversed the effects of the Plessy versus Ferguson decision, which established a constitutional basis of racial segregation. On May 18, 1955, just one day and 1 year after this historic event, Mary McLeod Bethune died at the age of 79 in Florida. Born in Maysville, South Carolina, Mary McLeod Bethune was one of the most influential women of her generation, an educator, civil rights activist, and women's rights activist. Mary McLeod Bethune dedicated her life to ensure that African Americans were free, treated with dignity, and had a first-class education. Among her many accomplishments, she founded what is today Bethune-Cookman University in Daytona Beach, Florida. She co-founded the United Negro College Fund, helped to integrate the Red Cross, and was even appointed by President Franklin D. Roosevelt to the National Youth Administration in 1936. And also this week in history, May 19, 1925, El Hajj Malik Shabazz, better known as Malcolm X, was born. Malcolm X was a Muslim minister and civil rights activist who wanted Black people to be so proud of their Blackness and so confident in their abilities that they could be self-reliant as a community, living separately from the other Americans who treated them as second-class citizens. He was one of the most important and influential leaders of the civil rights movement and one of the top African American orators in American history. Was today your first time hearing about Brown versus the Board of Education or Plessy versus Ferguson? Was today the first time you heard the name Mary McLeod Bethune or Malcolm X? Well, I hope you learned something about our beautiful history today. But before we go, I want to leave you with today's quote, and I want to leave you with the in the comments section. Here's today's quote.
If you stick a knife in my back 9 inches and pull it out 6 inches, there's no progress. If you pull it all the way out, that's not progress. The progress is healing the wound that the blow made. And they haven't even begun to pull the knife out, much less try and heal the wound. They won't even admit the knife is there.
What attorney and head of the NAACP Legal Defense and Educational Fund and future Supreme Court judge represented the plaintiffs in the historic case Brown versus the Board of Education? If you know the answer, leave it in the comment section below. But if you don't know, conduct some research so you can know. And never forget what Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson teaches us, and that is, your mind is a pearl, and you can learn anything in the world. Listen, friends, that's all the time we have today for What Youth Ought to Know. Until next time, I'm Tim Lee.
Push Excel's goal is to inspire students to strive for excellence in education in spite of personal, family, and community challenges that they might experience. How do we do this? By advocating for educational policies that guarantee equal funding for all students without regard to race or economic standing. By engaging parents, students, and teachers in pursuing high-quality education and striving for educational excellence at every level. And by forging partnerships with community-based and public sector stakeholders in education. Now, Push Excel is a national model program with the purpose of connecting principals, parents, popular personalities, and students in a bond and to support students at every level on the educational ladder. Now, we want you to become a member of the Rainbow Push Coalition and Push Excel. Your annual membership can help us to change policies that impact students, colleges, and universities all around the country. So step up and sign up today. Membership is only $35, and if you're a student or a senior, $15. Just go to our website, rainbowpush.org, and push join to become a member or push donate to support the Push Excel program. You can also text the word Push Excel, that's PUSHEXCEL, to 41444 on your cell phone, and you can give us any amount that you feel comfortable giving or call us at 773-256-2775. Wherever you are, you can support us as we keep pushing for you. And remember to keep hope alive.
Welcome to a Spotlight on Education. Today, we have a very special guest who is Mr. G2 Brown, former education director for the Kenwood Oakland Community Organization, affectionately known as COCO. And you may or may not know that organization was founded by Reverend Jackson when he first came to Chicago. Mm-hmm. So we met G2 and we worked with him across the years. And one of the most significant things that I can remember is the parents of COCO were concerned about the closing of the high school, Diet High School, right here in the Kenwood Oakland community area. And so they said, you're not going to close the school and have our children having to go miles away from home just to get a high school education. And so they went on a hunger strike. And many of the strikers spent many days and nights right here at Rainbow Push. Since then, he has become elevated from being education director at COCO, where he was doing more than that. And he won't say it, I can say it. He is now the executive director of the Journey for Justice Alliance, and he travels the length and breadth of this country organizing parents and community leaders to challenge the inequities in our system, in education and housing. And so I wanted him to talk to us about some of the new initiatives you have that our people, you need to be really, we're partnering with him on some of these initiatives.
Thank you, Reverend Wilson, and I appreciate the kind compliment. And this is really like, I'm having a moment while we're sitting here because we actually used to sleep on this stage.
That's right.
During the hunger strike, because we stayed here overnight, and we would roll our little blankets up and just lay it out all over this stage. And I will always remember that the only faith-based, and I don't want to marginalize Reverend Jackson's role, but the only faith-based leader who embraced us during that time, because was Reverend Jackson here at Operation Push, and I always appreciated that. You know, providing a space for parents to have our voices heard. Too often when we scream injustice, there's somebody telling us, well, it's not that, it's something else. But we knew that Diet High School was unfortunately, a perfect case of public school sabotage. I sat on the local school council at Diet for 10 years, so I know that it was not a failing school. I know the gains that we made. I know the history-making work we did. And to see that school gutted of resources on purpose, I'm proud to say that I'm from a community where parents were willing to stand up and have the political acumen to know that this was an issue of equity. It was not an issue of whether our schools are failing. As a matter of fact, we don't have failing schools, but as a public, we've been failed. And so again, I just want to thank you all for all your support.
Oh, we
for
thank
those
you
efforts.
for your activism. We would come in every morning. They were here fighting, and then as the weather got better, they had tents outside, fighting for our children. Grandmothers and parents sitting and saying, you're not going to close the school. And the good news is Diet has been reopened. They have put inside the school some additional services and equipment that should have been there all the time. So it's more of a state-of-the-art facility than it would have been had the parents not been activated and organized. And one of the parents is now alderman of the
20th Ward. Yeah. Alderman Jeanette Taylor.
Yeah. So that's what happens when parents and community work together and faith community take a stand against injustice. So tell us what you're doing in education.
Yes, ma'am. So we, ever since 2019, we were working very hard to make sure that we can impact the education agenda of the next president. Journey for Justice Alliance is basically a national organization of community organizations. We have member groups in about 38 cities. We're growing, and we wanted to make sure that we did not have a privatization agenda, which means school closings, the charter school industry, further destabilizing Black neighborhoods. So our first friendly target was Elizabeth Warren, and she actually adopted many of our platform points. One of them was the call for 25,000 community schools by the year 2025. Hold
on, what's a community school?
Yes, ma'am, thank you. A community school is basically a school that functions as a community institution. I'll explain. In our model, we want all aspects of the school community, teachers, parents, students, community members, to be involved in looking at what is the school curriculum? Is it culturally relevant? Is it challenging? Is it engaging? What are the supports that teachers should have? Like, what are the supports for high quality teaching instead of standardized testing? What wraparound supports should you have for every child? Wraparound supports can simply be defined as interventions to remove obstacles to children being inspired. So yes, it can be a counselor, it can be someone, it can be an optometrist, it can be a social worker, but it can also be a debate team. It can also be an Afro-American History Club. What do you put in place? Yes, to remove those, to remove the obstacles to inspiration. Then a community school also looks at how do you create a student-centered school climate? So instead of our children going to schools treated as if they're criminals, how do you foster student leadership development in the school? How do you create a discipline policy where children are held accountable, but they're also embraced, right? And then also, what does transformative parent and community engagement look like? How should parent and the community be involved in the culture of the school? And finally, what does an inclusive school leader look like? What type of principles should you have in a building that actually manages this type of program? So that, and community schools are by far the most effective model that is operating in the country today that educates every child, whether that child is brown, black, white, or blue, whether that child is low income, or whether that child comes from a family with wealth. Community schools has the highest rates of attendance, which is the most important thing because children have to be there.
You have to be there.
Community ownership of the school. So if your mother is a room mother, or if your mother is helping, or your father is helping children in preschool or kindergarten learn to read, when you walk down the hall, you actually, as a child, you know that you're accountable because the community is in the school. But if we treat parents and community as if we are the enemy, then you actually have colonialism in our neighborhoods. You have alien institutions in your own community. So we were able to impact the education platform for Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders. And then we held the first ever, we pulled together with, we pushed national teacher unions, and we also brought together several other groups like Center for Popular Democracy, some youth organizing groups. And we held the first ever presidential forum on education equity in Pittsburgh, December 14th, 2019. And at that meeting, at that time, presidential candidate Joe Biden committed to holding charter schools accountable, investing in community schools, investing in ending the school-to-prison pipeline.
So wait a minute. Community schools, that's not even a novel idea. It is an idea that affluent school districts implement every day.
Every day.
Every single day. If you go to, just in the Chicago area, you go up to Neuqua Valley, you go to the Barrington school system, though when you drive into that community, they tell you, welcome to the Neuqua Valley School. That's a big sign because they want you to know they have a tremendous focus on education. The school is the center of the community. Every community activity happens at the school. It's not a barrier. It's not some place that you don't want to go in and you only go if you're fighting.
Yes, ma'am.
The parents and the teachers, the educators, they're all one big happy family. Yes, they have challenges, but it is not a contentious, constantly contentious situation where children are going through metal detectors and arrested on the campus. And they have more security than they have educators.
Yes, ma'am. And I think I would even, Reverend Wilson, go a step further. You don't have to go to Neuqua Valley. You can go to Diversity in Ashland in the city of Chicago.
Right.
You can go in Lincoln Park in the city of Chicago, and you see a completely different educational experience. I know this because my son went to Agassiz Elementary School for about a month. I saw no more than 22 students in every class. I saw a teacher aide in every classroom. The children learned Mandarin, Chinese, Arabic, and Spanish. And those babies deserve it, and I'm happy that they had it. But of course, I'm sitting there. They let the wrong brother in there. Because my question is, I'm like, well, why don't our children have this on 44th and King Drive? Why don't our children have this in Austin? And so, I think what you're raising is there's a belief system. We say values are beliefs that govern your behavior, right? There's a belief system about us. And it poisons every quality of life institution that most Americans take for granted. Most Americans are not worried about if their hospital is going to close, or if they have a grocery store, right? Or if they have decent housing. If you get a room of folks across race and you ask folks how many of you all have ever engaged a slumlord, we know who's going to raise their hand, right? If you say how many of you all have a liquor store in your neighborhood instead of a grocery store, we know who's going to raise their hand. But
how many of you get your bread and milk from the gas station or the convenience store, which has limited items?
And it's more expensive.
It's more expensive because you only get, and you have to go frequently because they don't have a gallon of milk; they only have a quart. So you got to go back every other day if you have more than one child or people drinking milk and eating. And they may or may not have eggs, but no healthy option.
Yes, ma'am, and that connects to what we're doing now. So we were able to win an additional $40 million for community schools in the federal budget, $1 billion for Title I.
Title I, tell them what that is.
Title I is funding for high poverty schools. So schools that have the highest concentration of free and reduced lunch are deemed Title I schools. Well, what we're doing now is we believe with the influx of the billions of dollars from the American Rescue Plan, Chicago, for example, got $2.8 billion just for education.
$2.8 billion.
We have launched a series of listening projects and town hall meetings across the United States. We've done over 125 listening projects, which is basically bringing people together, saying how has racism impacted you in education and what are your recommendations? We've done town hall meetings, so we've engaged thousands of people. And we've done virtual town halls as well when COVID was in full swing and people didn't want to come in person. Again, with thousands of people asking the question, how would you reimagine public education? In this city in 1986, Mayor Harold Washington challenged activists and organizers, make me do something about education, and they organized the first Chicago Education Summit, which resulted in among other things, the creation of local school councils. Right. So we believe that what we're doing is we're gathering all this data, not only in education, but in housing, healthcare, food production and delivery systems, youth investment, the rights of our seniors, economic development, the environment, We're going to produce a quality of life agenda that emerges from the grassroots. And then in September 20th and 21st, we'll have a mass mobilization in Washington, D.C. You can learn more about that at our campaign website. Our campaign is called the Equity or Else campaign. And the website is www.standingforequity.org. And then post-September, we want to engage in a national process of reimagining public education.
So what we want you to do is join us at the PUSH convention. This year, I told you, every week we're going to give you something about the convention so you'll know why you need to come. If you're a parent, a grandparent, an aunt, or an uncle that working with children, you're an educator, you want to be a part of this listening session. We want to hear from teachers who have not been able to express themselves in your building. We want to hear from us. We really do want to hear from principals. Mostly want to hear from parents, want to hear from students. Come to the session we're going to have at the convention. Our convention opens June 18th through the 22nd. I think the education listening session will be Monday night.
That's right.
We want to make it easy for those of you working 2, 3, and 4 jobs. Before you go home, come to or you can watch us online. We'll be on YouTube and Facebook, but we are going to be in person at South Shore Cultural Center. We want to hear from you because we work with G2 and the Journey for Justice Alliance in reshaping public education.
As they say, don't meet us there, beat us there, right?
Say that one more time.
Don't meet us there, beat us there. So that's old school blue light party stuff.
Oh boy, be there.
I'm Todd Yeary, and this is Due Process. If you're feeling the pinch of rising inflation, prohibitive energy costs, and uncertainty about COVID-19, you're not alone. If you're finding it harder to make ends meet, you are certainly not by yourself. A recent study by Lending Club Bank shows more than half of the people who make more than $100,000 per year live paycheck to paycheck. That means for persons who make 6 figures per year, there is more month than there is money, and it is worse for those who make more modest incomes. For persons who make less than $50,000 per year, 80% of them live paycheck to paycheck, which means that it is harder to pay monthly bills without difficulty. While there are some indicators that wages are rising and easing the burden on the monthly household budget, the continued stress of high inflation affecting everything from housing costs to gas prices to food commodities like milk and grain is taking a toll on household budgets. The data is more concerning for those who live in urban or rural areas, with almost 2/3 of the people in these areas living paycheck to paycheck. The study surveyed more than 3,000 people in its data collection. With so many struggling just to get by, we have more than enough reason to continue to expand new markets and new opportunities at this year's Rainbow Push International Convention, June 18th through 22nd. Go to rainbowpush.org to register. It is free. There's much to discuss concerning racial justice and diversity this week. We begin with the story of 4 private prep school educators who have sued their former employer for retaliation. The educators were members of the faculty of Sewickley Academy, a co-ed college prep school in Pennsylvania. The conflict that led to their termination is grounded in the ongoing fight over school curricula and teaching about race. Last year, a parents group complained about the school's diversity, equity, and inclusion policy that was adopted in 2019. The parents group labeled the policy critical race theory dressed in sheep's clothing. The policy the parents complained of simply stated, quote, racism is not black people's problem to solve. It is white people's problem to solve, end quote. And all people must work together for justice and equality. However, after the parents complained, the head of school was fired in an effort to return the school to what it used to be, according to the new head of school. That return included the termination of all 4 black administrators and the only black teacher in the lower school. When 4 white teachers opposed the firing of the administrators and teacher, they were also terminated. And some of the administrators have filed their own lawsuits against the school. Douglas Leak, The former head of admissions asserts that he was fired as a part of discrimination against blacks, while the school said he was terminated for performance and declining enrollment. Leak is seeking damages for wrongful termination and discrimination, while the 4 teachers who protested the firing of the black teacher and administrators, they are seeking reinstatement and back pay. It will be interesting to see if these cases ever make it to trial. We will be watching and monitoring their progress through the courts. Meanwhile, the construction industry is facing intense scrutiny when it comes to gender and race discrimination. The EEOC held a hearing this week with witnesses urging the agency to take steps to address these concerns. The commissioners heard testimony of instances of discrimination, including the displaying of nooses and sex discrimination, including sexual assault. Some of the issues with workplace practices and discrimination include limited access to training and skill development opportunities, and the need to review the role of unions in preventing discrimination in the workplace. Additionally, concern about discrimination on the job has an effect on the attitudes and performance of women and people of color, with some describing fear of injury and other concerns while on the job. But the construction industry isn't the only sector where there are concerns about equity and equality. Last week, we shared with you the story about the confirmation of Dr. Lisa Cook as the first ever black woman to join the Federal Reserve Board of Governors. However, there was also some concerning news from the Fed board. Namely, there's underrepresentation of economists of color staffing the board in Washington. The Federal Reserve employs only 1 black male economist and no black women economists in Washington. More than 70% of the economists are white and 75% are men. There are no Native Hawaiian or American Indian economists, while Hispanic Americans are only 9% of the economists in the Federal Reserve System. That while only 14 total economists in the Federal Reserve System are black. There are 945 economists who work for the system, evenly divided amongst the board and Reserve Bank staffs across the country. It is reported that the Federal Reserve System is the largest employer of economists with doctoral degrees in the country. The demand for greater diversity within the economist ranks must be intensified, even as the first black woman joins the Federal Reserve Board. There is good news on the international diversity front. Standard Bank has named its first black woman chair. Nkululeko Nyembezi becomes chairman designate on June 1st, replacing Thulani Kabashe, who is retiring. Standard Bank Group is Africa's biggest lender by asset value. Nyembezi's appointment comes as there is pressure, even in South Africa, to expand diversity and inclusion among its executive ranks and boards of directors. Looks as if South Africa and the United States are still mirroring one another when it comes to the lack of diversity. We congratulate Ms. Nyembezi and look forward to the continuing expansion of diversity opportunities in South Africa and around the world. On the public health front, more diversity is needed in pharmaceutical trials and research. The absence of diversity in clinical trials is a contributing factor in health disparities in the United States, according to the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine's recent report on clinical diversity. The report cited other studies that highlighted the challenges with developing medicines based on more diverse clinical populations. For example, the phase 2 trial of the Alzheimer's drug crenezumab was conducted with 97% of the clinical participants being white and 2.8% of the participants Hispanic, even though the effects of Alzheimer's on Hispanic communities is significantly higher. Another example is prostate cancer, where black men have a 75% higher incidence rate, but only made up less than 5% of participants in prostate cancer clinical trials. While the data indicated that women now make up half of those who enroll in clinical trials, some have argued that mistrust of the system is to blame, particularly among African Americans. The data seem to indicate that the issue is lack of engagement with the African American community in the clinical trial design. The absence of diversity in clinical trials influences the dosing guidance and monitoring of side effects within certain demographics. Some economists have suggested that the cost of health care and overall health outcomes would benefit from greater inclusion in the clinical trial strategy. These strategies must include a more robust engagement, information, and enrollment strategy in communities that have been historically overlooked in clinical trials and pharmaceutical research. We will continue to explore and share how you can be a part of socially responsive and culturally sensitive pharmaceutical research and testing. The nation is reeling after the horrific mass shooting at the Tops grocery store in Buffalo, New York. We remember those whose lives were taken in an act of evil that was carried out as an extension of racial hatred stoked generations ago. White replacement theory, as it is called, is not a novel or new doctrine. It is the codified expression of white paranoia about racial extinction that is and has been acted upon violently. The browning of America has been and continues to be of haunting concern to those idealistic views of America that are held like dinosaur bones in a museum. The notion of America being a white nation defies and belies the nation's history. The social construction of race and racial hierarchy has always been designed to serve the interest of economic isolation and stratification, while race-based hostility and violence is used to intimidate, assault, and even kill. While there are specious and juvenile arguments against critical race theory, the reason there is a critical race theory at all is because there is the constant, persistent white denial of attitudes of racial supremacy that fuel acts of random violence across the country. What happened in Buffalo is but the newest chapter in the ongoing biography of America's unrepentant attitudes about otherness. Whether it is in Buffalo, New York, or Laguna Woods, California, or Charleston, South Carolina, or Charlottesville, Virginia, or El Paso, Texas, or San Diego, California, or Orlando, Florida. This type of violence continues to perpetrate as patriotism, while those who claim to define patriotism refuse to challenge the mere notions of white misogyny and supremacy. The miscegenation attitudes of the 18th and 19th centuries have been replaced by chants of Jews will not replace us in the 21st century. The killer in Buffalo is another indoctrinated soldier of misguided and misstated history who took on a mission of protecting what did not even benefit him. The whiteness that he defended, he was not a part. That whiteness controls most of the nation's wealth, buys more and more elected positions and officials, and promotes the regression of hard-fought gains in the courts through sinister and subversive claims of a higher morality around issues of a woman's right to control her own body and the right of two people to be in a committed relationship. That whiteness betrays white people too. So today we push back against that betrayal and we remember Celestine Chaney, Roberta Drury, Andre McNeil, Catherine Massey, Margus Morrison, Hayward Patterson, Aaron Salter Jr., Geraldine Talley, Ruth Whitfield, and Pearl Young. We pray for their families. And we pray for those who were wounded, Christopher Braden, Zaire Goodman, and Jennifer Warrington. We remember those who were killed and wounded in innocence as we continue the fight against white supremacy. We remember that this isn't critical race theory. Childish Gambino, AKA Donald Glover, reminds us that this is America. We pause to remember. That is this week's Due Process. I'm Todd Yeary.
Good morning, everyone. If you're just tuning in, you're watching the Rainbow Push Coalition Saturday Morning Forum, and I am Tim Lee. Listen, I have a very special announcement for anyone who's graduated from the 8th grade, 12th grade, received an associate's degree, a bachelor's degree, or any other degree from a higher educational institution. We want to celebrate you at the opening of our International Rainbow Push Coalition Convention starting on June the 18th. On Saturday, June the 18th, from 10 until 12, we are going to have a baccalaureate program that is going to honor any graduates from 2020, 2021, and of course this year, 2022. If that is you, you can register for our convention at www.rainbowpush.org, or you can scan the QR code that's on your screen. We want you to RSVP so you can be treated like the VIP that you are. We're also preparing a special digital presentation for this event. So if you have pictures of you that you have taken for graduation, pictures of you in your cap and gown, or even pictures that you have in your college paraphernalia, we want you to send those pictures to Tim Lee at pushexcel.org. Again, this is a call for pictures that you can send to Tim Lee at pushexcel.org. And for my final announcement, I want to let all graduating high school seniors know that there is a scholarship with your name on it. We are still accepting applications that we want to give you. Go to our website at www.rainbowpush.org. Go to our website for Push Excel and find out how you can apply for a scholarship for college. Our application deadline ends at the end of May, so you still have time. Before I go, I want to let you know that we want you to join the Rainbow Push Coalition at the student rate. That student rate is just $15 a year. If you're interested in doing that, go to our website and sign up today, www.rainbowpush.org. That's my time, friends. I can't wait to see you in June. And let me end the way I always do, and that's with the words of the Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson. If your mind can conceive it and your heart can believe it, then you can achieve it. Until next time, I'm Tim Lee.
We're excited to get more people involved in Rainbow Push, supporting the programs of Push for Excellence and the Citizenship Education Fund. If you're interested in impacting public policies, if you believe in the scholarships that we give to thousands of students each and every year, you can become a policymaker by becoming a member of Rainbow Push right now. For an annual membership of $35, or if you're a student or senior, $15, you can help us make a difference in the lives of millions. How do you become a member? Visit our website at rainbowpush.org and press join. Or maybe you'd like to support us. You can text the word PUSH, that's PUSH, to 41444 on your cell phone, and you can give any amount you feel comfortable giving. You can also call us at 773-256-2775, or go to rainbowpush.org and push donate. Wherever you are, you can support us as we keep pushing for you.